Hello, everyone. We're Virginia Tech Motorsports. I'm Isabella Grazer, lead chassis engineer.
I'm Ayati Joshi, suspension engineer.
And I'm Alexandra Nichuparenko, the competition document manager.
Today, we're talking about a problem that sits at the very start of the motorsports pipeline, exposure. The title of our presentation, From Screen to Track, reflects how what kids see or don't see on screens shape who ends up behind the wheel or in the paddock. Despite motorsport being one of the only sports where men and women compete in equal machinery, the numbers tell a very different story. According to More Than Equal, women just make up 10% of participants in global motorsport across all levels. Now, that number doesn't reflect a lack of ability or passion. It reflects a lack of access. Girls fall out of the pipeline before they even reach a go-kart, much less a formula car. And the drop-off starts early, in childhood. Toys, media, and role models all influence who kids think belong in racing. Our proposal focuses on addressing the issue at the source by fixing the exposure gap in children's media. As NASCAR mechanic Heidi put it perfectly, no question that it's a man's world. When you're in this garage area with all these guys, there's always the question, is she really here to work or is she here to marry a rich driver? That mindset doesn't start in the paddock. It starts in childhood, when girls are told, directly or indirectly, that racing isn't for them. There are several layers to this issue. First, visibility. In kids' media, few female characters race, build, or lead. Even major franchises like Cars fail the Bechdel test. Female characters exist, but they're rarely part of the action. When girls don't see themselves represented, they don't imagine themselves in that space. Second, access and awareness. Motorsport entry often starts with family, parents who already know about karting or local clubs, but most families with daughters don't have that awareness. By the time the girls could get involved, the funnel has already narrowed. Third, fandom doesn't equal participation. Female motorsport viewership, especially in Formula One, is at an all-time high, but enthusiasm alone doesn't convert into participation when there's no visible, accessible entry point. And finally, financial and cultural barriers. Racing is expensive, and the stereotypes still run deep. Most programs aimed at women target teens or adults, but by then, it's too late to change the foundation. So the result? We're seeing more interest than ever, but it's not translating into real change. If girls don't have an entry point early, all the enthusiasm in the world won't change the landscape. We can't just react once they're teenagers. We have to plant the seed much earlier. By creating representation and accessible entry points in children's media, we make motorsport visible, familiar, and possible, long before it feels out of reach.
The solution our team proposes is an animated children's series that aims to close the gender pipeline gap in motorsports by focusing on the earliest point where girls are being pushed away from the sport. We're focusing on the animation because it shapes our imagination long before the real life access appears, and then through animations, kids will have the exposure very early on. So the series would focus on women in the center of the story. It would follow a who navigates the world of motorsports. It would also highlight women in all roles, like drivers, mechanic, engineers, team managers, showing girls that there is a version of motorsports where girls like them belong, participate, and succeed. It would also create partnership opportunities with current female drivers in F1 Academy, NASCAR, IMSA, and others to live examples of women at the top of the sport, as well as creating the mentorship and like a role model that girls can look up to and be inspired. I think this series will create as partnership and sponsorship opportunities and merchandise collaboration opportunities where we can do toys, books, apparel, STEM focused activity kits for young girls, reaching a bigger audience and having greater exposure than ever. And the most important thing that this show and series will help us build is the kids, parents, and racetrack pipeline, which would create for kids and sports from the comfort of their own home, either find out about the motorsport industry or learn more about it, and then through links, QR codes, and other efforts. The show incorporates it could programs such as FIA Girls on Track, the Women in Motorsports North America, local STEM clubs, youth guarding, which would convert the media engagement application. Therefore, this series would amplify, not replace the grassroots motorsports programs, and would lead to a greater exposure and greater participation of young female drivers, mechanics, just young female audience in the world of motorsports.
Media is the only intervention that can really reach children at a wide scale. It reaches globally into homes that are never going to be anywhere near a paddock, a karting facility, or a motorsport mentor. Not only that, but it's accessible across all socioeconomic backgrounds, which means that it can build volume in the pipeline before anybody really has a chance to get excluded. For motorsport organizations, that matters economically as well as culturally. Treating media as the upstream stage of talent acquisition widens the pool before the industry spends money at the professional level. That lowers the cost of late-stage recruitment, increases the depth of future candidates, and strengthens long-term credibility because the sport is no longer relying on a handful of people that already know about the sport. Instead, you have a system that scales participation before filtering, and that's the only place that diversity actually gets the chance to increase. The animated series is not the final destination. It's a spark plug. It's the point where motorsport becomes thinkable to a child that would never otherwise have encountered it. Without that first moment of recognition, nothing else in the pipeline can ever activate. From there, the goal is to convert that initial ignition into motion. We build clear handoffs from the show into real entry points, including Girls on Track, local karting, and collegiate motorsport programs, so that interest has somewhere to go instead of fading away. We aren't discarding existing initiatives, and instead we're supplying them with something that they never have at this scale, which is a population of girls who entered the pipeline early enough to still be in it when the opportunity actually arrives. In the short term, so looking at years 1 through 3, we expect changes in discovery and awareness. There are more families becoming aware of youth motorsport programs, there's higher digital engagement, and there's more click-throughs on real motorsport signups. This is the phase where exposure finally stops being accidental. In the medium term, so years 4 to 8, we expect a lot more participation. There's more younger female license holders, more collegiate involvement in both technical and creative motorsport roles, and stronger mentor-mentee links across all levels. This is the phase where imagination really begins to convert into actual progress and behavior. In the long term, which is anywhere past year 9, the expectation is that there's structural change rather than isolated success stories. Women are consistently appearing across the motorsport ecosystem as drivers, engineers, strategists, team members, and even like marketing people. This is a model that can be replicated by other organizations worldwide. This is the phase where the pipeline stops depending on outliers. This model is built to grow without changing what it does. Horizontally, it expands to new age groups, additional media formats, and international languages, which allows reach to scale that's far beyond the first audience. Vertically, it can connect directly to the motorsport ecosystem through feeder speed series partnerships, race weekend activations, and structured handoffs into existing development programs, which ensures that screen exposure has an actual landing place. Economically, it's designed to be self-sustaining. Licensing, merchandise, classroom partnerships, and sponsor-funded story arcs allow the model to continue operating without relying on yearly discretionary race budgets. In other words, it doesn't just launch, it endures, and it's sustainable. Thank you for listening to my presentation.